Let's talk about currency.
Mhm.
There is a standard currency now in the market by a particular company, and there are others, such as Kantar and others in your space, that have the potential of possibly creating a currency. What do you think the likelihood is of another currency or supplanted or an additive currency to the current model?
I think um, I think what Cantor does is focus on not replacing anything. It's bringing what's newer, what's better and different to really improve the business process that exists today. So, what does that mean? Does it mean that traditional measurement goes away? No, but it does mean, for example, that measurement for tuning on pads, on iPads, now becomes important. But more importantly, we start thinking about what isn't measured in the ecosystem of television today. And I would argue that commercial measurement is something that hasn't been measured. And there were reasons, because meters don't measure sub-minute audiences. They're not designed to. So that's why we're excited about Return Path, because it's new data that's different, but more importantly, it's better at assessing value. Because now what we've done is defined program audience, time period, day part by network, but now we've added the value of commercials. So what we've done is we've matched the data to our MI data, which is our intelligence information that records and identifies commercials. So we now are reporting commercial audiences. And what we've also done is matched it with creative testing with our sister company, Millward Brown. So what does that mean? We've just completed a study at the ARF, and what it says is that now we can correlate and understand audience tune away simply by looking at creatives, which we test at Millward Brown, and then follow those commercials when they go on air so that we can actually link the creative to the actual commercial tuning behavior and see what happens, to see if there's any correlation between creative and media placement. Can't do that with traditional
So
measurement.
this commercial study with Millward Brown,
Yeah.
um, what were some of the top line results, and were there any surprises?
You know, I think the surprise was, what's the relationship between the creative and media placement in terms of audience tune away? Simply put, which has the greater impact, the commercial message or the environment where it runs? And we're seeing that media placement is about 3 to 1 in terms of impact. And how did we do that? Well, on the return path data side, through our direct view service, we were able to identify measurable influences of what impacts audiences and what may cause them to tune away. So what were 7? They were the program, the network, the pod, the length of the commercial, the position in the pod, the category of the ad. And when you start taking a look at these influences, we've created benchmarks. So over the course of a quarter or a month, we can actually then compare individual ads or campaigns to every ad that fits that category. So what did we learn? We learned that the first position in the pod experiences the most tune away. If you think about it, it makes sense. Now, we've known this for years, but what we didn't know was that if you then manage and measure the creative, so if you test for the creative itself and then follow that creative in terms of behavior, what impacts audiences? Again, media placement. So now what we're offering to customers is how a commercial can be tracked from almost its inception through its delivery and measure 2 things: how the creative message was received, and more importantly, what was the reaction of the media placement when it hit.
So you'd said that the most fall off occurs in the A position,
Usually.
but does that still mean perhaps that the A position is the best position to be in?
It could be, but it's really depending on your strategy. What we know overall, the first position usually has the highest rating because that's inheriting the audience from the program. But we also know that the audience drop off or tune away is the highest. So yes, you start off with the highest rating, but you're going to lose you're going to lose a significant portion of it as the program goes on. The key finding, though, this may differ between programs. So if you look at pods and positions in pod, you may have a show like American Idol that actually ascends during the course of the show. So pod 1 is not as good as pod 7 because pod 7 actually has much higher audiences for the commercials in the pod. The position is also important because if you're in pod number 7, you may experience a high rating, but you're going to lose some. The real bottom line is that now, because of return path, we can measure each of those ads independently and compare it to the program average so that a programmer can understand what the differences are in terms of inventory. But more importantly, the advertiser can really assess what did they pay for, what did they get, because now you can see the audience levels of each of these commercials and the activity and behavior in between.